Hello everyone and welcome back to Macro Friday. First of all, a quick explanation for the silence last week as one of my awesome clients sent me an OPN Sense router, and if you've ever dived into a full network reconfiguration, VLAN, subnets, the works, as well as Docker services, and yes, you know it, everything else. So, well, you know how it goes, that is for sure. So I went in to check a few settings on Friday, and well, before you knew it, I didn't actually emerge. Well, I think it was actually Tuesday the box arrived. Wednesday I started setting it up, and then Monday, before I knew it, it was Monday. And so to make it up for you today, we are having a double header of two macros, which are the ultimate cleanup crew for your ScriptCase environment or platform or project, should I say. And since they both deal with resetting your environment to a clean state, it made perfect sense anyway to cover them both in one go. So today we are mastering the SC reset menu delete and SC reset global macros. So let's dive in, shall we? So hello and welcome back to another Scriptcase by Jamie episode. And yes, we are reaching the end of the year. Very soon we'll be there, and it will be the end of another year of macros. So today I have two macros for you, and those be the SC reset menu delete, which is an addition to last week's macro, or the week before, should I say. It should have been last week's macro. And then this week also the SC Reset Global. So two awesome macros that will help you clean house within your project. So first of all, we have the SC Reset Menu Delete. So let's have a look at that one, shall we? So if I come here into, say, my ScriptCase environment, and I'm just going to create a new application, and it's going to be my macro sample. Let's just call it like that and create. It doesn't need a database connection or anything, because I'm just really just going to type out the macros in here and show them off to you so you know how to type them out. So our first macro today is the SC reset underscore menu underscore delete macro, and that is how you type that one out, and that is also how you then use it. Now you can use this within the on application init event or on load event, and of course by the macro name you probably guessed it, it is for the menu application. That is the menu, the responsive menu, as well as the tree menu. So in ScriptCase, this macro actually allows you to hide, or dynamically hide, should I say, your menu items. Now this could be for security purposes, whether that be a user role, or whether they've purchased something, or whatever it is. Whatever the reason is, this menu can sometimes, well, this adjustment to your menu can sometimes persist within the menu session. So basically your user is using the menu and they're expecting something to change because some process has changed, maybe a role has changed or whatever it is, and then the menu should update. And the menu, well, it remembers. So with that, we have this specific macro, which allows us then to go back, making sure that we can then now apply our new logic to the menu. So yeah, new parameters basically, new role or whatever it may be. And with the previous macro, well, you may notice some similarities. So it's pretty straightforward to do. You don't need any parameters either. And once you apply it to your menu, off you go. It is pretty straightforward. Now to show you how you would actually use this, so if I come here into my home again, and we have some menus here already. Now, menu using initial application, let's open this one up, And then here within our events, when we add new menu items here into our menu, we would then maybe want to apply this on the onload or on application init event. If it doesn't work in the onload, just try out the on application init. Sometimes you need to move your events around because of course your menu has certain things going on at certain times. Now, if I come here then and type in reset underscore menu underscore disable, and we had then also the sc reset underscore menu delete. Now, both of these macros, the previous macro for the menu, as well as then this week's macro. And with that, then we can then basically reset our menu. So now if, for instance, we say, let's say if our user underscore role, say if that equals maybe guest, and then we would then adjust the menu accordingly with the sc menu delete. And now we are then going to go ahead and delete something from our menu. And then that also accounts then for the sc menu disable. Okay, so when we use these two macros within our menu application, these reset macros allow us to basically reset these configurations and ensure that the menu we want the end user to have is really what they are going to see. Okay, so you could have that then in here, and then here you would then of course mention then your item 1, item 2, item 3, whichever your menu item is. And just to remind you, because for sure you know already, your menu items are the IDs that you have here for your menu. Okay, so that is then how you would use then this week's macro. It's pretty straightforward, just like the previous macro, and they basically go hand in hand, which is why I figured I would show you it again. Now our next macro, so I'll close that menu application. Our next macro is a little more interesting. Well, we use this one, want to use this one a little more often. So it's the sc underscore reset underscore global macro. And this macro comes with, well, a few parameters. As you notice, the previous ones didn't. We just need to define them and it works. Now with this macro, we have some parameters we need to define. Now it is, say, a heavy hitter, you may say, for session management, okay, because it's used to delete specific global variables that we have stored within the current PHP session. And if you use a global variable, say something like customer ID or global ID or whatever it is that you are using, and the globals you would then define within your hard brackets. So here I would then have my global ID, and sometimes that could be then my user ID, whatever that is. And then with these, we would then use these to, send data back and forth in between our applications and set global variables that configure things within our project. Now they're really cool. Now with that, once we have those then defined, well then maybe we want to reset those because, sometimes this specific global or customer ID, say, will filter a grid, or it will perform a search for you within a specific application, and then it tends to stay within that session. Now, if the user then moves to a different application or a different part of that application, this, say, let's call it a ghost variable, because that's what it then becomes, might actually accidentally just trigger something that you may not want triggered. So it will then maybe filter incorrect data on another application, which can, it can be pretty annoying. So you would go from one application with a specific variable, so it would then display specific content for you according to what you have passed. And then your next application, well, it would retain that variable still. And then when you go to, say, back to an application, you're going to see the same information again. It's going to keep showing you the same data, even though you are not wanting that. You're actually now wanting the full view, let's say, so all data within that grid, for instance. Okay, so to use this macro, like I said, we have some options that we can then use. So here, for instance, I can then add in here my parameters, which would then be my global variables. So here I could say my login, for instance, and I can comma that. I could then say the password, for instance, and then I can maybe say the customer ID that we have defined, and then whatever other global we have. Just like that. And then we place them here within the brackets, and our global variables will then be reset. So then, for instance, if we then coming back to one of these previous macros, sc reset underscore menu and delete, we would then maybe use this macro again. And now if we have then our, say, our user role, so if I come in here and I say, if not, well, it's not what I want, is it? We want here. Now I can't see my keys. Okay, so there we go, curly brackets, higher bracket. Now if we have here, say, our user, and let's say our user role, and if that then doesn't say is the accountant or something like that, then maybe here we would then adjust the menu item, and there we would have the sc menu delete again to perform something else. And then at the same time, we're also removing these global variables from the equation and resetting them so that then the next data is then displayed accordingly. Now, that is something pretty important to do. It pretty much gives you, say, a fresh workflow, and with that you have then, say, a professional handover from application to application. So when a user logs out, switches roles, or jumps between, say, major modules or applications that you have providing specific data, you want to ensure that your environment is reset, those globals are reset, and the data is reset so that they view the information they are meant to be viewing and not something pre-configured from something else. Okay, so that is pretty much it for this week's macro session. Now, network configurations might take an entire week. In fact, I haven't entirely finished yet. I still have a few extra bits and pieces I want to do. Maybe I'll show that off in one video in the future. Anyway, if you're glad that we are continuing and have enjoyed this double feature, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, of course, for more macro goodness, and drop me a comment below if you have ever had a simple hardware upgrade that turned into a week-long project like mine, of course, well, 2 week or 3 week. And, well, I'll catch you all in the next macro video. Until then, I hope you have a great one and have enjoyed, of course, these macros for today.